Hi Archie, thank you for joining me on the podcast. How you doing?
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, very well.
Thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on. But I want to go back to the start, really. What was your childhood and early life like?
Um, Totally and utterly dominated by sport, football in particular. And then at quite an early age, I suppose, at about 10 or 11, I realised I could sing. So I used to do a lot of singing. And then that was my first kind of showbiz job as a singer. So that's what I did. But well, I used to sing in the clubs and bands and things like that, but I never missed training, and I always played football on a Saturday and a Sunday. So yeah, I hammered it really. Burned the candle at both ends, as they say.
Were you a good footballer?
That's a matter of opinion, but I was certainly very enthusiastic. I always ended up like at school, captain of the school and all that. And I don't know whether it was because I was the best player. I was just a good motivator, if you know what I mean. I was good at cheering everybody up, and I was always keen. I was keen as mustard, really. If it had been anything, I would have loved to have been a footballer.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
when you're only 5'6" and 9 stone at the time, you get pushed around a bit.
yeah, same as me then.
Yeah,
So so we mentioned you started out singing, but you're also a comedian and performer.
yeah.
When you speak to performers and comedians, they usually say when they're younger they tried to get everybody's attention and was class clown and stuff like that. Were you like that?
I was, yeah, really. I mean, I was not all the time, but only in the subjects that I didn't like in school. So I mean, I don't know. I just never took to maths, and but I took to the teachers who were characters, who had a bit about them. I mean, we had a Latin teacher. I mean, don't forget. I mean, I went to an all boys grammar school, so I remember a Latin class. We used to call him Spud because his name was Murphy, Spud Murphy, and everyone was frightened to death of him. And but he was a great teacher, and I always remember there was a lad who used to sit behind me who became a professional musician. All he was bothered about was music, this lad, and he used to drive everyone nuts. He'd be like tapping away, pretending he was playing keyboards. And anyway, this particular lesson, this Spud Murphy said, remember, he's got captivated audience of like 30 young lads, and he's going, "There's these two beautiful Roman girls. One's blonde, one's brunette." He said, and whoever answers this question right, you get the blonde one. So this Stephen Murphy, Stephen Buckley, had no interest at all in anything else but me. He puts his hand up and gets the question right. So he brings him out to the front of the classroom, and then he sends his linking this blonde girl back to his seat, you see. So then he asked the second question about, the brunette, and Stephen Buckley put his hand up again, and he brought him out and slipping him for being a pervert. So but you were totally engrossed in his lesson, and at the time I was good at Latin, I was good, and he was our maths teacher, and I was good at maths. But then when you get a teacher who was really boring, then you end up being the class clown. You end up messing about, and I always made people laugh. I mean, there was one because it was a Catholic boys' grammar school, and we were run by De La Salle brothers. They were a teaching order, and we had one brother, Dermot, and he used to have these capes. They'd have like a white bib and a long black cape, and he always had his hand inside the cape because every now and again he'd pull a strap out, you know. And so this lad is sitting in front of me, Johnson, I always remember, and I got one of those, those blackjacks, and I chewed a little. You remember the little
Yeah,
softish
yeah.
stuff, and I chewed and put it over my teeth. And then I tapped him on the back, and he turned around, and he went, "Oh!" And this brother just turned around and whacked him for messing up. So I was always doing stuff like that. But they were great days. I think when you got 30 lads out, you end up making each other laugh all the time. So yeah, they were happy days really at school. Because I say it was a lot of sport was going on, and we had it was good.
Well, you
Yeah,
became. Oh no,
go on,
sorry,
go on,
what
go
did
on.
you say?
No, I was going to say I was never a performer at that stage, apart from messing about.
Well, you became a teacher.
Hmm.
So did you want to take the interesting side of things and not be like the boring teachers then?
No, no. Funnily enough, I had this thing where I reflected on my own school days and thought, do you know what? If you're not fairly strict, they don't learn, they don't thrive, you know. And what I've learned is that in a class of children, if a teacher's strong and is the leader, they know their role and they relax. Whereas if they're weak, they don't know what to do and they start messing about and then it ends up in chaos. So I was a bit strict and but you know I would have a sense of humour now and again, you know what I mean. But I didn't want it to be. You're not there to be the friend, you know, as a teacher. You're there to teach, you know. So I learned that lesson early on, and I see people now. I did some event somewhere, and one of the girls running the event, this Kelly, she's called, and she said to me, she said, I hated you at school. I said, all right. She said, you humiliated me. She said, you come in the classroom and you went, you get that makeup off or whatever, you know. And I said to her, I'm sorry about that. I said, but what you do, you assert yourself straight away, put everyone on the toes, you're in charge. And I said, and you were just collateral damage, you know. But she's never forgiven me. So yeah, but I mean that's what it is, you know. They've got to be more frightened of you than you are of them, if you know what I mean.
So were you still performing at this time as well then?
Strangely enough, yeah, I used to sing in the clubs, in the working men's clubs. And I think I started off doing like comedy impressions and singing impressions because I was always I could always mimic certain singers, you know. And I did that, and then even when I was doing my degree, because I did my degree was in Hispanic studies, so I did Spanish and Portuguese. And logically, because I did Spanish and Portuguese, my first teaching job was French. So I mean, that says a lot about the system. But so yeah, so what was I talking about then? Oh yeah, so I was still performing, I was still doing the clubs. I remember at university, I was like I'd be on a working men's club somewhere in Wigan, and I'd be you know in the breaks, I'd be like finishing my essay that had to be in the next morning, you know. And so I did all that, you know, and I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it otherwise because I was a mature student. I was 28 when I went to university. So, you know, I'd always kind of regretted not doing it, you know, because I was good at it at school, good at Spanish. Spanish was my main passion, you know, and so I regretted that. So I went back, but I want a bit. Couldn't live like the younger students, you know, they were out, you know, every night and all that. So, yeah, doing the clubs paid me way through it, really. So,
When you started performing live, you mentioned you started as a singer,
yeah.
but when the comedy and stuff came into it, was it natural to you, or did it take time to get
Well,
used to?
what I used to do anyway in between songs, I would tell jokes, but they were more like the old-fashioned type jokes, you know. And sometimes if you got in a club, and I'm not having a go at musicians, a lot of them were great, but sometimes they'd be playing it, and you think, what are they playing it? You don't even recognise the tune, you know, because some of them were really poor, and I would end up doing more jokes and maybe leaving a song out that I knew that was going to be complicated for them. And I ended up doing that, and then you know, like throw a few impressions in and all that. And then I remember I got booked somewhere, some club in Blackpool, and the guy come in and he went, "Oh, you the comedian?" I went, "I'm not a comedian." He went, and I went, "No, what do you mean?" He went, "You better I'd be." And what had happened was because people knew I did jokes and that, they thought I was a comedian. I said, "No," you know. Anyway, so I did what I did, and they never complained. But it was really funny that I realised then that people identified the comedy side of it. You know what I mean? And in those days in the clubs, you were a comedy vocalist, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and then when I started doing what we call stand-up comedy, many years later, even when I was a school teacher, I started doing this character, Jackie Mr. Goodtime Valencio, and it was based on some of the characters that I'd met in the clubs, you know. And I'd come on, I used to have a blonde wig, seems to be a theme with me with wigs, but I came on with this blonde wig and I'd go into the audience and you know, and I'd do all these impressions of people like Joe Pesci and all that. And what I would say is, these young comedians, they can't do it without swearing and all that kind of stuff. I said, but, and then I would do like Joe Pesci doing, like, say, for example, you had a scene with John Wayne in the 40s or 50s on cinema. were these heroes, and say, and Joe Pesci would say it like this, and he was effing and blinding. And I always remember the bloke come up to him and went, "Hey, you know what, mate, you're right there. You can do it without swearing." And I'd sworn all the way through this by doing the impressions. So you can convince them of anything in the end. But yeah, so I started doing stand-up comedy then. I'd only been doing this character for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And there was a BBC showcase in Manchester, and I did that. And I ended up on some BBC show with Lionel Richie and all that. And I was like, this is all right, you know what I mean? So I was still teaching at the time. And it was only because you asked me about the teaching, and it was only when I did Phoenix Nights that some of the children started to recognise, and I always remember walking down the corridor going, Brittany, that kind of stuff. So you think, how long am I going to be able to carry on doing this? But I always felt like because of the training and all the studying and all that, I was wasting it. Should have been using it to help these young kids because we're in the city areas really. But in the end, you just can't do it. You can't keep two things going. So I packed it in the end. So.
Well, you mentioned you'd perform in like working men's clubs and stuff. So when
Mm,
you went into Phoenix Nights and the
yeah.
characters and stuff, were they characters you knew from performing at working men's clubs?
Well, the writing, don't forget, has nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, we all chipped in ideas, and I had things that had happened in clubs that I knew about. But the main writers obviously were Peter, Dave, and Neil. So I mean, I think Dave had some kind of experience of the working men's clubs. And I think probably out of the whole cast, I'm not sure how much Dave did in clubs, but probably just Dave, me, and Ted really. I think the others are a bit too young to have known those kind of clubs. Where you did 3 spots around the bingo, and you had to be dead quiet while the bingo was on and all that. But the bingo it paid for everything. And everything, all the beer was subsidised, and you'd have acts on, bands on, and I mean, when in the 80s, I was singing like 7 nights a week. But now, it's karaoke and it's taped. Everything's taped. And a lot of musicians, I don't think they've not got the work that they used to. Because when I sang at the Ritz in Manchester. I was the lead singer in the band, and it was a 10-piece band. So you can imagine the stage. We did 45 minutes, and then the stage would revolve, and a 5-piece band would come on, and they'd do 45, and then we'd go back up. So we'd do 4 sets each, and it was all live music, and everything. And all the people would come and dance and all that. And if you think about it, that's 15 wages every night, 4 nights a week. So they couldn't sustain it. So if you went in there now, it'd be just a DJ, in the corner. So financially, it didn't make sense in the end in those days. But it was a shame because there was so many musicians got work. And it wasn't just Manchester. There was Tiffany's in Leeds. There was the Grafton in Liverpool. They were all over. The Mecca dance halls were all over. So it's a shame really. They were great days for singers and musicians.
before we get into Phoenix Nights, I just want to ask how you first met Peter and how did you roll on the Peter Kay thing come about?
Yeah, I met him at some comedy club, I think, somewhere. But what that BBC showcase I was telling you about, it was at the Frog and Bucket in Manchester. I was doing this character, so Peter was emceeing it for the BBC thing, and I remember I was on. Janice Connolly was on as well, and I did this character, and he came on and he was laughing. He said, "That's the funniest thing I've seen in ages." So when he was doing that Peter Kay thing, he said, "I've got this character. This episode's in the club." So I didn't audition for it. I just went and did it. So when he chose out of all the 6 episodes that he'd done, because he was an ice cream man and all that, those Peter Kay things, he chose to do the club one as the series. You see, Phoenix Night. So I was already Kenny Senior at that point. So, when people say to you about being at the right place at the right time, it's very true in my case. I mean, I'd always been a performer, but over the years I've known brilliant performers who've never ever been near the television. So great ventriloquists and comedians and all, but for some reason they never made that jump into television. And actors, of course. There's loads of great actors. You go to any theatre, You see some great actors, but for some reason they never make that jump, or maybe they don't want to. But you've got to be at the right place at the right time sometimes, there's a lot of luck involved.
Did you always want to go into television? Like, were you
I never, not
naturally?
really, no, it never crossed my mind. I mean, I was always a live performer, like you say, when I was singing like 7 nights a week, I was so used to being on a stage. So when I started doing comedy, people thought I'd been doing it a long while. And I always remember someone said, "How long have you been doing this?" Comedians talk afterwards. How long have you been doing it? And I said about 2 weeks. And they were like, I said, "No, what you're picking up on is I've been performing since I was 17. You know what I mean? So I'm used to it. So I obviously gave off this confidence on the stage early on because of I was so used to it because I've got a lot of admiration for people who get up and do comedy for the first time. Because I mean, when I did it for the first time, I was out of my comfort zone, because I was a singer. So I started doing this character would do singing impressions. I went on and I was doing make up on and things like that. And so I was still clinging on a little bit to what I was comfortable with. Now I go on as myself, and the reason I go on as myself now is I remember going on as this character. But bear in mind, I had this blonde wig, and everything. And I'm going on doing this character, Jackie Mr. Goodtime Valencia, and I always remember this lad in the audience went, Kenny, so I thought, it's compromised now, you know what I mean? People know it's me. So I suppose it's a bit like you see Caroline Aherne, for example, doing Mrs. Merton, and then once they knew it was a fake character, because in the early days, when nobody knew it was, they thought she was real, it was hilarious. But once they knew it was Caroline Aherne behind it, or, Sacha Baron Cohen doing whatever, one of his characters, once you know it's him, it takes something away. When you think they're real, it's really hilarious. So I thought it's compromised now, so stop doing it.
Do you wish you kept that character going?
It was only 2 weeks ago. I was doing some comedy club. Where was it? Much Wenlock. And one of the lads on it who I've known for years, he said to me, "How come you don't do it anymore?" And I told him the story because some people remember it because it stood out quite a lot. So yeah, I have some regrets about it. Maybe one day I'll revive it. So
Yeah.
when people have forgotten me,
Yeah.
then it'll be fresh. Oh, you're frozen.
Oh, is it all right now?
Hmm.
You back to normal?
Oh yeah, right now, yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah. You're back to normal, yeah.
That Peter Kay thing, that episode in the club, is like a
Yeah,
mockumentary, like before The Office was about. Did you?
yeah,
Did people think you were real characters then at that point?
absolutely. And I tell you what, there's not many people would get away with using like 14 unknown people. Bear in mind, I think there was 14 comedians on that show. You can go through them all. Me, Justin, Toby, Steve Edge, Neil Fitz, Dave Spikey, Peter, Janice Connolly, you know, Joe Enright, Ted Robbins. We,
Paddy?
well, Paddy wasn't really a comedian at that time.
Oh, was he not doing
Um,
it then? No.
I don't think he was. No, he wasn't really doing comedy at that time. No, no. I think the first kind of thing he did was when four of us decided to do a show called Jumping on the Bandwagon. So that was me, Steve Edge, Janice Connolly, and Paddy. Paddy MC'd it. And I'm not sure whether he'd done anything before that. I don't know. But yeah, he wasn't a comedian at that time. But what I'm saying is to turn around to Channel 4 and say, I want these people in it. They must have thought, oh, hang on a minute, this is, they didn't, they're not proper actors. So that made it look real because people didn't know. They didn't, when you watch something and it's funny and you go, but yeah, he used to be in. You can't help yourself doing. Do you remember him from? He was in Emmerdale or whatever. And you do it. So I think it kept it fresh, and people did think we were real. Yeah.
So Phoenix Nights, when did you know that was going to get made into a series?
Oh God. Well, it must have been about 2000 or something like the end of 2000 because I think it was 2001 the first series we did, and we did it, and it kind of passed by. It went by unnoticed. And then I think it was word of mouth that built up this, thing about have you, when people say to each other, have you seen that series or whatever, because I don't think it was hammered on for advertising on TV. And I've noticed the exact same thing because I'm kind of on the chalk face of, when I'm doing stand up, I know what people are watching. They'll tell me, and it's happening now with Brassic. People are getting onto that the same way. I think. But the difficulty with Brassic is because it's on Sky. It's not as accessible as it was. Phoenix Nights was on Channel 4, you see, on a terrestrial channel, and that was a quicker. Even though it was slow, it was quicker than the Brassic one. But Brassic's getting there in the same way now. So people are coming up to me after the shows and saying, "Oh, I love your character in Brassic," and blah. And they used to do that all the time with Phoenix Nights. So yeah, so it'd be about 2001. They did the series, and I'm saying it passed by, and then we did second series, and then if you remember, I think Peter did an advert for John Smith's beer where he booted the ball. He went, "Have it."
Yeah,
Remember that
yeah.
one? And then people were going, "Who's that?" And I think a lot of people then went discovered Phoenix Nights and started watching the series because it's all about being visible, in show business. And they must have thought, "Oh, who's that?" And it seemed to be after that it took off then, and yeah, really was launched.
You mentioned the brilliant cast. It must have been a laugh on set with all those people.
Never ever stopped laughing, and taking a mickey out of each other. It was just unbelievable. I mean, 14 comedians, what can you do? It's like just laughing out. And then it's kind of filming got in the way, you know what I mean? It was like we'd all be in this little room playing snooker and stuff and taking a mick. And then Archie, we need you for this scene. Oh, God, you know what I mean? I'm in the middle of something. So, but I've never worked on anything like it. I don't think I ever will again because it was just chaotic. I always remember one of the walkie talkies went missing, and it was Daniel Kitson was on it, and boom, they'd be going, "What's all that?" And he'd be saying all these rude words, and everything, and it was just chaos. You just wouldn't get away with it. You wouldn't get away with that in any other job, you'd probably get sacked. But yeah, it was great. And when we got together to do the comic relief, so about 7 years ago now, it was like we just fell right back into it. We were just laughing all the time, and it was great fun, really great fun.
There's a scene in the first series where you're all sat around the table talking about Keith Ladd, and it took loads of attempts to do it. Have you seen the outtakes and stuff?
He's on about the one with young Kenny, with Kenny with Justin, where it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
about we had a boss like that once. That one, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It was if you were at a funeral or something and there's a real tension and you think something happens and you think that's funny and you think I can't laugh at that and it was like nobody laughed now and it was a Friday afternoon and all the crew were getting really fed up because everyone was laughing one by one and it got to the point where we all kept it together and we looked and the DOP, the cameraman, his shoulders were going like that, he was laughing. So so in the end, if you see those outtakes, they turned the camera around to where I am because they'd had enough of that. We can't hold it together. And usually it's Peter who starts it. He's the giggler, And if you count how many times the rest of us laugh compared to him, you know what I mean? I mean, he's Champions League. We're all second division. So yeah, he's the worst one for it.
Is there any other scenes that were like that that took ages to film?
Oh, there was loads of. I mean, I think every scene that Peter does is something happens he laughs about. But yeah, but like I say, we got a false idea of doing television was like. Because when you go in something and you're only like in it for the day or something, you just sort of locked away in your own little, Winnebago or whatever it is. And then they come and get you, and then you go and do your thing. But we never sat on our own in that Phoenix Nights. We were all together all the time. It was just constant laughing.
So,
So
there was a bit of a feud between Peter and Daniel Kitson. Was that apparent on set, or was it only
there
after?
was a bit of a what? Sorry,
A feud between Daniel and Peter Kay, Daniel Kitson.
oh, I
After,
don't know about that.
oh no,
What was that?
oh no, he said something after Phoenix Nights, and Peter Kay called him out on it. I don't know what happened. I think he threw.
Oh yeah, I think Daniel had said it was the worst thing he'd ever done. So he wished he'd
Yeah,
never
yeah,
done it. But I mean, but he did two series.
yeah. I was gonna say it can't be that bad.
Yeah, and I we were saying, well, just give the money to charity then. Yeah, but I think it was a bit because for the most of it, it was the best thing we'd ever done. You know what I mean? It was great. So to somebody to kind of denigrate it, I think it was a bit, maybe a bit, and not only that, I still think it stands now as a great piece of work. It's a credit to the three writers and all the people who are in it. And so for someone to say that, I think, but I mean, he's. I've not seen Daniel for many, many years, so I don't know whether you never know whether what they've said is what the quote is
Yeah.
what they've actually said. You always have to be mindful of that. You can be misquoted or they'll blow something up that that you never actually said. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about now, but I don't think it was anything major. No, I think that, like if someone said something, I'd have a go back. Doesn't mean we're falling out for good. You know what I mean? It'd be like we would if we were sitting together in a room. Someone said to you, "What about?" And you go, "Oh, yeah, but what about what you did?" That kind of stuff. But when it's in print, it looks like a million times worse than it is. So I don't know. I've not even read the piece to be honest.
Are there any favourite scenes of yours that you filmed?
That I was in, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Probably the Britney Spears thing. I mean, we had a laugh doing that. Because obviously, I've got my back to the audience and they're looking at my legs. And then I turn around and the guy goes, "Oh, going on that kind of stuff." So that was quite funny because I didn't know until the day what I was going to be. I remember Peter, I think it was Peter and Dave, I think, or Peter and Neil said to me, because they knew I did singing impressions, choose someone that you can do. And I'm thinking of all these different people I could do. I made a little bit of a list of what I could do. And they go in and go, "No, it's all right. We've chosen what you're doing." I was like, "All right, okay." There's your outfit. It's like, so that was but walking. But actually, the day before we filmed it, they had me down to film it that day, and they put all the makeup on me, and I always remember this stuff on my lips, and I couldn't eat my lunch properly. And I'm walking around with a skirt on and all that. I was like that all day, and I never saw a camera. I'm sure they did it on purpose. And so it was the next day when we filmed it. So
Did you get that a lot then? People shouting Britney at you and stuff.
doing what?
People shouting Britney at you, like in the
Oh,
street.
yeah, I mean, I used to live right near the school. My old school actually. I used to live on just on the road next to the old school. And I started getting a few, knocking on the door on the way, shouting Britney, and all that. But it didn't last long. But yeah, kids at school knew I was Britney. Or family do, they go, "Are you coming as Britney?" That kind of stuff. But it just tapers out after a while. Yeah.
When was the moment you realised it was like a big sitcom that kind of changed your life in a way?
I mean, I was still teaching when we did, even though what I did was I packed in the teaching full time. And I was still doing supply teaching at the school that I taught at. Because if you do supply teacher work anywhere else, you just I mean, you just might as well put your own head on the chopping block. You know what I mean? So I did it at the school where they all knew me anyway. So I was still working as a supply when Phoenix Nights 2 was out, and it was towards the end of that you could feel it going. Like, oh, it's going big here. So, but what the thing is, what it does is it opens the door for you to do other stuff. You know, yeah. And what's weird, like let's say you go to Coronation Street and you're in the green room, whatever, and one of the actors goes, "Oh, it's and you think I always assume that people don't know who I am. You know what I mean? And when you think that people do know it, I mean, I heard a story once that David Bowie got off an aeroplane in Manchester for a connecting flight, went in and come out holding CDs of Phoenix Nights. You think people like that, or really top international stars have watched it, and it's mind blowing, really. You know what I mean? You think, oh God. So I always assume you don't know, but there's a lot of people do know who you are. So
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't say fame, because I mean, someone said to me at Manchester Airport when I was coming out last week, and they said, "You're famous, aren't you?" I said, "Well, you won't be asking me that if I was, would you?" What I mean? You did know. So yeah, there's a scale of fame, isn't there? I mean, I worked did a thing with Lionel Richie years ago. I told you that's fame for me. these kind of people, your footballers, your Paul Gascoigne's and all that. They're really fair. But then there's obviously the degrees of it. You know what I mean? You can see someone who was in an episode or something. You go, oh, that's so. You don't know the name. You know what I mean? You just know the face. So yeah, it does. It's not stopped me doing anything. I could go out, sit in a restaurant, and sometimes only when I speak, people go, where are you from? Otherwise, you can live your life normally. I mean, I've been out with Peter, I've been out with Paddy, and they don't leave him alone. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you can be. We went for Chinese somewhere in Manchester, and people get garlic bread, eating garlic bread, that kind of stuff, and it drives you mad in the end, won't it? So they end up just being to exclusive places, and it's not just because they think showing off because they've got the money or whatever. It's because they're not getting minded to death. So it's like chicken and egg, what came first.
It is a fickle thing, fame, and it's nothing really, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, you know, tomorrow's chip paper type thing. What's in the news. But you just use it. And you're kind of grateful that people enjoy what you do. I mean, it's nice that people say, that was really good. I've never had the people come up to me 10 years later and go, listen, that lesson you did in French, when in November, whatever it was, that was great. Thanks a lot for that. Whereas in this kind of medium, you do, people say, oh, I saw you in cash, yeah, it was good, that kind of stuff. So it's nice. I'd hate to play like a child killer or something, or serial, because you might get the opposite. You might get filled in every time you go out.
Was there ever talk of a third series?
Actually, the talk about that came from Peter, I think, because when we were at Paddy's wedding, Peter said something about he'd written another episode, another 6 episodes or something like that. I remember it vaguely, yeah. But you know, I'm sure they'd get everybody together because I mean we all got together to do the. I mean, we were on it for a month on uh, the comic relief, so sure. Because the other thing is though, I mean, I think psychologically a lot of people just moved on and doing other things. Because a lot of people are not bothered now really. So if I leave it any longer, it'll have to be set in an old people's home anyway. So
Do you see any like? I know you said you go out with Peter and Paddy sometimes, but do you see much of?
no, no, that was years ago. I've not seen Peter for years. Last time I saw Peter, it was either on the comic relief thing or on Cradle to the Grave when I was in that with him. So no, I've not seen him for years.
What about the
Paddy,
other
I've
one?
Paddy, I've seen. I did a did
Yeah.
a did a pilot for the BBC a few months ago with Paddy. Um, who else have I seen? I've seen Neil. I've seen Neil and Janice. The three of us actually, me, Janice, and Neil. We did a little show up in North Yorkshire, and we each did a stand-up set, and then the final set we got three chairs on the stage, and we did question and answer. And
Oh
they
yeah.
they loved they loved the question and answer section of the audience. Because people always want to know about things. Which is basically what this is. You're asking me questions about things. So imagine it in a theatre, they loved it. Someone was going around with a mic and they were asking questions, and it worked really well. So I saw those. Who else have I seen? Um, Not really seen anyone else apart from that. Oh, Janice. I just mentioned Janice, didn't I? Yeah. Janice, Neil. I've not seen Justin for a while as well. I used to pop into Justin. We bump into him when we used to do stand up. But no, I don't really see much of him. Dave, I've not seen for years. So
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you all clicked when you went to do the live shows, like you'd seen each other yesterday. What were those live shows like, though? Did you enjoy them?
well, they were good fun. They were really good. I mean, the first night, obviously, a lot happened on the first night, but the first night I remember we were all peeking around the curtain, and all you could see was just this, 15,000 people in the arena. And bear in mind, we were all going on doing our own thing on our own, you know, um, and it was the biggest audience that, apart from Peter probably, because Paddy wasn't doing arenas at that point. It was quite nerve-wracking the first night, and of course then Ted had his heart attack on stage. So it was, that was. But then after 3 or 4 nights, we just chatting away before we went on. It's amazing how quickly you adapt to a different situation. And I think some people can find a very, very small audience more unnerving. Because when you're on stage, I mean, when I realised I came up from underneath the stage with my back to the audience as Britney, and I just did this, and it was like a whiplash. It was like, and what it was all the clapping and the thing. But with that many people and echoing, I was like, what's that? But it was, and I realised what it was. It was just a. So you get used to a different kind of milieu, if you want of a better word. And a lot of people, I think, more unnerved when they say there was 20 people there and you can see all the faces. When there's just a load of people out there and you're getting a massive response, then it becomes easy, because they're loving it, So yeah, yeah, it was good. It was good, and watching other people doing their bit as well. Because we had Steve Royal who was the juggler in one of the episodes. One of the auditions at the end. And Steve's a great actor. He got all the audience going. And Alex, of course, who was not really part of the main cast anyway, who did Clinton Baptiste. His bit was really really good. And Janice did like a raffle type thing in the audience, and she's brilliant with an audience anyway. Neil was doing his rave on DJing thing. Dave did doing his Jerry Sinclair, doing his thing. So it was a really, really nice mixture, really, of different things. So it worked really well. Of course, then Peter and Paddy came on at the end. I mean, the kind of the compare of it was Brian Potter. And then at the end, Max and Paddy came out of the audience, doing their stuff. So it worked really well. It was a really good show. I mean, we were all on stage at the end for the finale, singing, that thing from The Lion King. So it was a really nice show, and people seemed to enjoy it. It was good.
It must have been nice in that instant gratification for a series that was out years before.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It was, yeah. I mean, it just shows you that there's still a massive market for it. I mean, you'd get people like on the front few rows, with tiger paint on and drinking out of a big vase and all that. They were obviously big fans. And I suppose Toby Foster and Steve Edge will be able to tell you more because they were on stage a lot because they were doing, Les Alamos, and they did a great thing where they get someone out of the audience. Well, supposedly, and they're doing a guillotine thing, and it goes wrong, and they chop the head off, that kind of stuff. So theirs was great as well. But the thing is, in between getting changed and doing stuff, you don't see everybody. You miss the same ones every night. So you'd see a bit of somebody, and then I mean, the good thing about that is that Ted was on right after me, so I didn't see him collapse because it was horrible enough without seeing it. So yeah, so you didn't see a lot of what everybody did. You saw bits, but it looked like a fantastic show, to be honest.
You mentioned before the audition scenes at the end of the episode. What were they like to film?
Funny enough, because I'd done the clubs, I knew quite a few of them. And some of them were stand-up comedians anyway. There's one where I say he was my geography teacher or something, I can't remember. He used to do the alternative comedy scene. There was an old. Do you remember when Jasper Carrot, Mike Harding, and all that were doing their? They were kind of the original stand-ups, if you know what I mean. They were doing folk music, and I was a bit too early for that. They were like Billy. That's how Billy Connolly started.
All right, yeah.
And there was one called Bob Williamson, tall, thin, with long blonde hair, and he was one of them as well. And then another one, there was one that was based on that Sticky Vicky or whatever from Benidorm. So I used to do some of these clubland auditions when I was younger. You'd go and then the concert secretaries would book you for their clubs. So they did; those things did exist, but like somebody your age now, you just don't understand what it. You've no kind of grasp on what that is, have you? You know what I mean? It's like those working men's clubs. There's three acts a night on. And every little town, especially in Yorkshire and Lancashire, they were all a lot of them were miners' clubs or factory clubs and all sponsored beer, cheap beer, and then a lot of the acts, the bingo paid for and all that kind of stuff. It was a different world then, but Phoenix Nights is about that, really. It's about that clinging on to something that was dying, so I identify with it very much because I'd been in the clubs, sang in the clubs for years.
Well, on Peter, you worked with him on. You had that little scene in Max and Paddy, Cradle to Grave, and Car Share. What was it like working on those?
It was funny the car share one because Peter rang me up and he said, "Oh, I'm doing this thing car share." He said, "I've got this great little part for you," and I said, "Oh, right, what is it?" He said, "Playing a dogger." I went, "Oh, right, thanks. I'm glad you thought of me." But the Cradle to the Grave one, because I still had a little bit of hair that was it, and it was the first time that they shaved my head completely because they put this, like a Bobby Charlton wig on. It was like three
Yeah,
strands, like three little strands of hair on. I played this uncle. Originally, it was Uncle Albert, but Danny Baker, whose life it was based on, thought it would be too much like Only Fools and Horses, Uncle Albert. So they called him Uncle. Can't remember what he was called yet. But so I've got these three strands of hair, and the lad who was playing the young Danny Baker, who was basically was one of the stars of the show. On the last day, because I only did a few days on it, on the last day, I'm in the chair in the makeup, and the girl starts taking it off, and I saw him look. And I said, "You thought it was my real hair, did you?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." He thought I was walking around with his Bobby Charlton. So yeah, that was all right. I think that there was only Peter and me. Sorry, Peter and I were the only ones who weren't from London. All the other people were Londoners because obviously Danny Baker's a Londoner, and it was about his life. And I don't know whether this is true, but I think it's probably because Peter said, "Well, I'm not going to London." You know what I mean? And I think that's the power he's got now. Because I remember we're sitting in this working men's club in Eccles in Manchester, and there's a girl like running around getting what you need and all that, and Peter said, "Oh, mind a bit of fruit." She legged it off. Next minute, come back with a load of fruit, and it reminded me of when we did Phoenix Nights. We all queue up for our lunch, and he tried to push in Peter. Well, get to the back, And I thought times have changed. You know what I mean? now he's get me some fruit. He didn't do that, but I'm just saying he said I'd get some fruit,
yeah,
and the girl legged it. But it's amazing. I went to see Paddy once. Paddy was in London and he was doing that show called Your Face Sounds Familiar, where they had celebrities singing. They chose a celebrity singer for them, and they had to go and then try and recreate that. And so we went in his dressing room. I thought, "Gee, his dressing room was bigger than our house." It was like I was like, "Is this it?" It was like settee and a bed and all that. I thought, Jesus, it was over the road from Paddy's dressing room was where they'd film Big Brother.
yeah,
The big studio there. It's Pinewood. I'm not sure Pinewood Studios in London. I'm thinking, Christ, when I first met Paddy, he didn't even have any tax on his car. He used to park it behind the club. So that he wasn't on the road. Look at him now. There's a funny story about the club actually, because what it was called St Gregory's the club. It was in Farnworth. So what they'd do, they'd come and the scene setters would come and all that, and then they'd put a sign over St Gregory's saying Phoenix Club, you see. So every now and again we'd do a scene in the club that would involve an audience. So it was a Friday night. I think we'd finished filming for the week. So we went in a little bar, in a little room in a bar, and then we just had a quick drink before we were all going home. What are you doing this weekend? That kind of stuff. And we come out, and there's this old lady sitting there, standing there at the door. We went, "You all right, love?" And she went, "I keep ringing a taxi to pick me up here, and they've never heard of the Phoenix Club." So no, love, it's called St Gregory's. You are. It's called. It should have been there all night.
We've like you said, they've got to have great careers, like massive careers. Paddy and
Yeah,
Peter.
yeah.
Could you tell that from the start that they were going to go on and do that?
I think you could with Peter without shadow of a doubt because he was, I mean, he had that. He had. I mean, I did when he did his top of the tower video. As a stand-up, I did a little bit in that as that character as Jackie Valencio in it. And you watch him with an audience, with a big audience, and it's not just that he's funny; it's that he appeals to all the different age groups. Do you know what I mean? He had that appeal that few comedians have got, really. So you knew he was going to be big. But Paddy, you wouldn't have seen the way. I mean, he's Mr. Showbiz now. You know what I mean? He's Mr. Saturday Night, and he's on everything. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? He is, isn't he? He's on
yeah.
everything. He's on everything now, Paddy. But you see the differences with Paddy. Paddy's got he's not got that what Peter's got with as a stand-up or whatever. But Paddy's got a fantastic personality. That's and you can't fake that. What you see with Paddy on the screen is what he is. He's not faking it. You know what I mean? I know this. I know some people who are on telly who I know personally who are not like that. You know what I mean? It's an act, and I suppose when I walk on, I'm doing an act. You know what I mean? But with Paddy, he is Paddy McGuinness. Whatever he does, he's Paddy McGuinness, and you can't fake that. And I think that's why he's so successful because he's real. You know, a lot of lads look at him and go, he's like one of my mates. You know, and the girls, well, they look at him differently, obviously. But and that was funny when we did the jumping on the bandwagon. We used to come off stage and we'd make our way to the foyer. And there was a lad called Terry who used to sell all the merchandise, you see. And we'd line up and sign. So as they come out, they go, "Oh, they're all here," you know, and they'd queue up and we'd sign stuff. And I used to get like a few old blokes, you know, and I'd sign and they'd go, "Do you know what? I work with a fella just like you know, who's like, they all got a story about someone they know who's like Kenny Senior, you know." And you turn around and Paddy's queue was all these women and girls like going. Going. So he always had that appeal anyway with the women, you know. So it's quite funny.
You've done a few soaps like Coronation Street, Emmerdale, and Hollyoaks. Do you
Yeah.
enjoy doing soaps?
Um, yeah, I think with Coronation Street, I think like my mum was a massive fan of that, you know, and if she'd still have been around, she'd have loved that. The others, I mean, they're they're very different. Like say Emmerdale, for example, they're very different kind of experience. So, for example, if we're doing Brassic now somewhere, so could start again in January, I think, doing some, and they'll film like this conversation now. Let's say we were in real life, you were standing in front of me. They'd like film you first from here. Then we'd all go off, have a brew, do whatever you do, you know, and then to come back and then to be filming it on me. You know, maybe they'll do one where we're both on it from the side or whatever. So that scene would take, a couple of hours just for one little scene. Whereas you go to do Emmerdale, I remember being in the wool pack and you do a scene and they're filming you at the bar. And then you think, right, there you go, right, we've got that. And you think, right, I'll go and have a break. And you don't, before you move, all the panels have come off from behind the bar and they've got cameras there already. And you go, oh, and you go, and you do it again. You know, it's like so fast because they're churning out like, 5 episodes a week, whatever. And then the houses, for example, if you imagine a big unit that's like a warehouse, you've got one inside of one house there of a kitchen, well, inside of, and the camera's just on a rail, so it'll film that, and it's all really fast, so it feels completely different. But when you say enjoy, what I enjoy is watching the process. And there's only ever once I've been in a studio where they've done the editing, and that's magical as well. What they do in the editing because you realise then that every single person involved. Because when you're in front of the camera, like you're doing a scene, and you see the other side of the camera about 100 people, and you think, what do they all do? And when you think that every one of them contributes to this fantasy that you see, because it's not real, is it? And they can make it look like anything. Even we did a scene in Brassic where it was like a World War II bunker, or whatever. And that again, that's just in like a way, but it's the artists, the who set the scenes and everything. You walk in, you go, this is absolutely brilliant. You can make it look like there's water trickling down and all kind of damp and all that, and you think they're unbelievable. And that's what fascinates me, watching it all being put together. And the director's got to have a real, holistic view of it all. Got to have a real vision, and they sometimes you think what they're filming here, but then you see it and you think, they can see all that. They map it all out in the mind. They've got the picture in the mind of what they do. So it does fascinate me, and I do enjoy the different. kind of genre, if you know what I mean, of filming, like comedy, serious stuff, and watching how they do it. It's fascinating, really.
You mentioned the bunker in Brassic. Did you enjoy your scene in that? The first scene of series two?
Yeah, do you know? I'll tell you what is great about Brassic. I mean, they're all great lads and girls, obviously, and they're just nice, friendly people. But working with Steve Evans is just a different level. It's a bit like the Phoenix Nights thing, you know what I mean? He's a real wacky character, and I do more filming on his phone than I do on the cameras because he's all just do this here now, and you're doing that, and he puts it on the Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But I've learned a lot from him actually. He all inhibitions go once that it's like action, and he's like gives it everything, and you've got to learn that lesson that it's not about who's watching you holding a screen up or holding the camera or whatever. It's about the audience, who are watching it at home and on screen. And as soon as and he's in, and the only other person I've seen like that on a live thing is Janice Conley, really, who plays Holy Mary in Phoenix Nights. As soon as she goes on that stage, she, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter if there's three people in the audience, she gives it everything. And you learn lessons from people like that, professionalism.
I've had Steve on the podcast. He's a funny guy, now.
Oh, Steve's a funny lad, yeah. We actually did a charity thing together. It was labelled as a Brassic charity evening, and it was just I went on did some stand up, and then Steve went on did some poetry, and I went on, and I got a really good response because a lot of Brassic fans in, obviously. Steve walked on. I'm not joking, like a rock star walking on. Honestly, he was. He was like, and you go, wow, and he did his poetry and all that kind of stuff. They absolutely love him on that. So again, I'm fortunate that a lot of my scenes are with Steve because they're kind of memorable scenes, I remember like in Coronation Street, they might have a really heavy duty kind of storyline, and then you'd have a little bit of light and shade because you'd have Stan and Hilda, whatever, and they'd bring a little bit of a comedy element to it. I think Brassic's a bit like that. You get these little comic interludes with Steve, and what I do, and so I enjoy that because I think to be all serious topics all the time and drama. Only fools and horses were the best at it. You'd have these little poignant scenes, with Del Boy and Rodney, for example, and then right at the end of it, bang, hit you with something, and you're laughing your head off. So they take you down and then, shoot you. So that's clever. That and I think that's mainly Danny Brocklehurst, he's the main writer. And if you look at his CV, I mean, he's just prolific. He's done everything. He's doing that £10 Poms. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh
He
no.
does that. He's doing all that. Well, Michelle Keegan's in it. Danny's written that. He's just everything you watch on the telly. Look, I always look for who's writing what, and he's so prolific. So again, I'm fortunate to be in with someone like that. A great writer.
So how did Brassic come about? How did you get that role?
Funny enough, I got a phone call from my agent, and she said, "Can you go down to London tomorrow for this thing?" And I said, I'm in the house now. I'm waiting for a taxi to take me to the airport. We're going to Mallorca for me. It was my sister's 60th birthday. She went, oh, right, okay then. So she got back to me and she said, when you get there, when you get to Mallorca, will you do, a thing on your phone? So I said, yeah, okay then. So I did this thing on the phone and sent it off. And then 4 weeks later, I've not heard anything. So after a certain point, like a few days, like if say you did it on the Monday, you wait till Friday. If you're not heard anything, you're not getting it. So I just forgot about it. Then he said, "Will you go down to? Will you go down to? It was called the Sharp Project on Oldham Road near Manchester." So I said, "Yeah, was it Brassic?" I said, "Oh right, thought you thought that'd all go out. No, no, they want to see it. So I go, and I'm reading this part, and the director was there, I think, and Joe Gilgun was sitting opposite me. So I'm doing this thing, and Joe's laughing his head off all the time. He kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm putting you off." I said, "Look, it's supposed to be funny. Don't worry about it. If you're laughing, that's good. So I come out and I thought, well, that went well. Didn't hear anything again for about another 4 weeks. But what it was the part that I was reading for. that wasn't the one I got. They had this other character, this Shirley, and Joe had worked because it's all based on Joe's life anyway. Joe had worked on this farm when he was younger, and the farmer next door used to wear this woman's wig, and they called him Shirley, you see. So they'd had this character for me. So I thought, well, that's brilliant, you know. But the first time I ever met Joe, it was really funny. He'd done This Is England, and I'd done Phoenix Nights. So he went, oh, we were sitting there in the corridor, like, you know, waiting to go in for this casting, and they give you what they call sides. They give you a little bit of the dialogue that you've got to learn, and you go in and you do it with somebody, you know. So I'm trying to read this, and Joe's going, oh, I love Phoenix Nights and all that. I'm going, well, you know, This Is England now, you know, how are you doing? All that. And he's talking, I kept saying, I better read this. You know, I'm going in. So we're chatting away, and he's still going on because he can sort Joe. And I said, look, I'm sorry, like, I'm gonna have to read this because I'm gonna. And he went, oh, it's all right. I got mine last night. They sent me mine. I've done mine. Me and my mate. And then the door opened. And he went, Archie, we'll see you now. I was like, went in, you know, and that was the first time I met him. So I went in totally unprepared because he taught me to death. So, but he's a nice lad.
Yeah, yeah. So what role was you going for before you got the Shirley one then?
The part I read, and I think it was just because they wanted to hear me read it, was you know the one who the you know the Undertaker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's perfect for it. You know, and but so that was the one I read. So it's like you can pick any part and you read it, and they get a feel of and then it must because I did it with one of the Jimmy McGovern things I did. I read for one part, and I don't know why they always in these serious ones they always seem to cast me as a priest or as a authority figure, you know. And I ended up playing a councillor or something, like a work for the council, you know. Or oh no, I ended up playing a priest. I ended up playing a priest in the street, and I'd read the part of a councillor, I think, or something like that. So it doesn't matter what if you don't get that one particular. They say, well, I tell you what, he'd be good in as that, you know. So. Um, you don't worry about things like that. You just do it and then see what happens. Because in a sense, you've thrown your hat into the ring, and you know it gets picked up. It doesn't, you know, or it doesn't. You've no control over that. Sometimes it's as soon as you walk through the door, they think, no, you're not quite. Well, the look. That's not the look, and that's what's been great about post-COVID with Zoom. You can do things on Zoom, and if you don't look right, you're not wasting a full day going down to London. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, I live in North Wales now, so it's a trek now going to Manchester. It used to take me like 15, 20 minutes to go to Salford to where all the studios are and all that. But now it's an hour and a half, you know, an hour and 40 or something like
So like you mentioned, you're on holiday and you sent a video off. What do
that.
you do in
Hmm.
that video if you don't know what your role's going to be?
Oh no, no, I read for a part. I think it was the part of the Undertaker.
No, but when you agent rang like right at the start, was that on you read there?
No, she didn't know what they were going to send it at that point. She just said they want you to go down, uh, but it wasn't. I thought she may have said it's. She may have sent me some. No, she must have sent me some scripts. She must have done because
Ah,
wouldn't go
right.
down without you wouldn't go down without a script, you know. So it must have been the part of the Undertaker. It must have been. So when I got there, I obviously did it on my phone, but it's not the same, you know. But at least they can see you, you know. You see your face and everything. So like I say, that was the initial thing. So what I'm saying is that had been before COVID probably. So post COVID, that's the norm now. You send it in, you know, and then they can see you, which is great for us because not only is it time consuming to go for a full day, London and back, it's the money as well. You know what I mean? It might cost you 200 quid in a ticket, and you won't get that back unless you got the part. So you know, it speculates to accumulating those. If you don't do it, what do you do? You know, you don't get anything, do you? So you do loads of stuff. Whereas the strike rate might be I don't know, 1 in 50 or something, you know. Whereas the more you do, and the more they'll sort of ask, you know, for you. I've had a few what they call straight offers where they just say, "We just want you to do it. You don't have to audition," you know. And now you wouldn't get that if nobody knew who you were, you know. So there are advantages, and like I say, that's why a lot of us are grateful for having that first start, with the Phoenix Nights things and all that, because it does then it opens a door for you to do other things. So
Yeah,
that's great.
definitely.
Mm,
With Brassic, we mentioned before it must have been a laugh on set on Phoenix Nights. It must be a
mm.
laugh on set with all the actors and actresses in Brassic as well.
There's a lot of similarities really with Peter and Joe. Really, Joe. I don't mean Joe laughing and stuff, but Joe is constantly thinking about things, and I think he alters things. So we've had a few scenes where we're walking along, and I'm going to speak right after Joe. And as soon as I see on the script that I'm going to speak after Joe said something, I think, oh, here we go. Because what he'll do is he'll change it, or he won't say what, and so so that means that what I'm going to say next doesn't make sense. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's like I'm waiting for your line, and your line's going. He was wearing a yellow coat, and I'll go. He was wearing a yellow coat because he got knocked down as a kid, and you don't say it, and I'm not just going to go. He's wearing a yellow coat, you know the type of thing. So and then you'll turn around and you go, what are you doing? And I'll go, what do you mean? What am I doing? You go, oh, I'm sorry, sorry. And but it's just that, so that's quite funny, But yeah, I mean, there's some good actors on that though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
brilliant.
They are good actors.
Have you got a
Yeah.
favourite scene from that?
Oof. Yeah. I mean,
The pig.
yeah, yeah. The pig was good. Yeah, where they kidnapped the pig. Yeah, that was quite good. Yeah. Again, that was with Steve. You see. Yeah. So yeah, it's been great, and I say it's been great working with Steve really more than anything. He's just so good to work with.
What
Uh,
about when you threw the ornament at the back of his head?
oh, no. Do you know? Funny enough, I didn't tell him this had happened, but I threw it the first time. When you're a kid, I mean, we used to play football, and then in the summer we'd play cricket and things like that, and you could throw that cricket ball for miles, and you never. I threw that. It just made my shoulder. I was like, oh Christ. So for the next time I'm throwing it like that, no significant. And so they had to sort of mock it up. And I never said I pulled my shoulder out, but I knew every time it come, I was like, I ended up. It took months and months to go, and I ended up having a steroid injection, and you can only have so many of them, and then it freed it up. But that was it. Now you can't go to A&E and say, and they say, how did you do it? You go, I was throwing a dildo. You can't. So, but anyway, I had this thing, and so that took months for it to go. So yeah, so that's what I remember about that scene.
You mentioned you're filming in January. You look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I'm in a couple of episodes. I don't know because they're still writing it. I mean, that's what happens with Brassic. They write it. They have a team of writers. I think Danny oversees it all and writes a couple of episodes, but they have so many writers now. And the first time you ever heard of that was in the American ones. The American, like your Frasers and Seinfeld and all that. They have a team of writers. Which is great, really, because you couldn't turn out that many. And he couldn't be working on other shows because I mean I think he writes £10 Ponds on his own. I'm sure he does. So he couldn't be writing something like that and doing another 8 or 9 episodes of Brassic. So they have a team. So they'll still be working on stuff. So I don't know. I mean, whatever is a bonus. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it.
You mentioned you've seen lots of fans getting into Brassic later on due to like it being on Sky and stuff like that. It's on Netflix. Have you noticed another
Yeah, yeah. Someone told me it was on Netflix. Yeah.
so you see loads of more fans coming in and watching it then now?
Well, they will do. That'll increase, and I say how I gauge it is when I'm on stage doing stand up. When I come off, and people will say, because funny enough, I was working with Steve Roy, the juggler. It was Phoenix Nights. We did some club up in I think it was Morecambe Football Club not long ago, and he was coming on. I was going off somewhere. I'd been on first, was going off, and Steve was coming on. He was going to go on later, and we're chatting away, and these about 4 or 5 women came up, and can we have a picture taken and all that? And I just assumed it was Phoenix Nights because that's what always happens. Is always Phoenix Nights. And they were going, "Oh God, we love Brassic." And Steve said, when they'd gone, Steve said, "Oh my God, it's happening again," because this has been going on for 20 years with Phoenix Nights. And then if it starts again, and I said, well, I'll get another 20 years out of this, you know. It's like, you know, so yeah, but I can feel, I know because I can feel it out there, if you know what I mean. Now, just to go off viewing figures, that doesn't concern me. What I know who's watching it is comedy fans. A lot of comedy fans are watching it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to talk about the Security Men. Was that meant to be a series?
No, well, I don't know whether it was or not, but I think when we did it, Caroline wasn't very well, and we filmed it, and I don't think it got shown for something like 2 years or something like that. So, but that was good because obviously Bobby Ball was in it, you know, and Brendan O'Carroll, and you know, and Bobby Ball was great. It was so funny, but there was a really funny. It was when Granada Studios were still in Manchester on Key Street, so we filmed it there upstairs, where in the same area where they filmed Early Doors.
All right, yeah.
So we're downstairs in the canteen, and uh, I came out of the canteen, and Caroline's standing near the door laughing her head off. I said, what are you laughing at? She said, this lad's just gone past. And he said to me, he nudged me and he went, hey, Bobby Ball's in the building. She went, is he? He went, yeah. He said, if you wait there, love, he might come back. She went, all right, thanks. She's Carolina Hearn and he's going on about Bobby Ball, you know. Really funny. Yeah, so it was weird that, but so really funny. But what a shame. I mean, she was a lovely Caroline. But yeah, so we did it, and it didn't get shown for about 2 years. And if you look at it now, I think they class it as a TV film.
Yeah,
But it could well have been, you know, because they certainly had a nice mixture in the cast. You know, whether Paddy and I would have been in it again as the two coppers, I don't know. Um, but certainly, you know, the other people, they had a nice chemistry going there, and um, I don't know whether they did ever do it again. I don't know because Jeff Pope was involved in it as well, you know, and he's a great writer as well. So anyway, it was a one-off, and it was really good working with people like Bobby. You know, God rest his soul. Another one gone now as well.
yeah, yeah. It was, yeah, like I say, it was a brilliant cast as well with that.
Yeah.
Just don't stand up. What advice would you give to somebody starting out in that world?
Um, you've got, yeah, I think, perseverance. Really, I mean, I mean, with me, um, I started off doing that character, like I said, because I could basically hide behind something and do what I was used to doing. And they always say, talk about what you know. You know, I mean, I always remember I think it was the very first gig that Alan Carr did, and he was talking about working in a call centre, which he'd done, and it was, you know, some of the stuff he did was hilarious, and it was his first gig, and whereas if he'd have gone on trying to construct something that he didn't know anything about, it wouldn't have been the same. I don't think, you know. So, is I don't know if you've seen his show, by the way, the one about his childhood, Alan
Oh, I've seen it
Carr's.
advertised. I haven't seen it though.
Oh, listen, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I thought the young kid who plays him as a kid as well was brilliant, you know. And it's not often I laugh out loud at things, you know, on the telly like sitcoms and that. I can appreciate how good they are, you know. But that really made me laugh out loud. I thought it was a credit to him, and he's done really well on them. But yeah, so going back to that, you see people who talk about their own experience, and that's what makes it so different. You can have four comedians on. One might be talking about the children that you know they just had a baby, and someone's talking about when they worked, you know, for the police force or something. And that's what's funny because it's real. You know, they know what they're talking about. I've always tended to think of I'll hear something like we were in Valencia for a month actually, and I was walking on the street and heard this Spanish woman get a word wrong, and she went, "Oh, I mean that," and that gave me a thing to construct a joke because it was so funny. And so mine, I tend to hear things rather than it all being about me. And I do stuff about my teaching, you know,
Yeah,
because I know about that. And I can talk about. I always remember though the first time after Paddy had made it big, I was talking about an incident at the Comedy Store in Manchester where we'd done the show, the four of us, for the first time, was jumping on a bandwagon. It was like we were testing it out, see what it was. So we did it there, and it went really well. And upstairs in the Comedy Store of Manchester, in the corner, we're standing there having a drink, and it's packed out, and all the way to the bar in the far end. This fella came over to me and he said, "Will you do us a favour? Would you come over and have your picture taken with my wife? Not that she's going to come over, you know, he wants me." So I said, "Okay." So we fought our way, and she's got her back to me. She's at the bar, and he went, "Yeah, love." She turned around and she went, "Not him, the other one." And right, and yeah. So I was telling this story on stage somewhere, and I mentioned Pat. She went, "Name dropper," you know, because I'd mentioned Paddy.
Jeez.
So, you know, even though you know someone, you know, and then you can't mention them because they think you're a name dropper, you know. So, as I said to Lionel Richie once, you know, but yeah.
So are you always looking at everyday life for like jokes and inspiration then?
Yeah, I think my wife thinks I'm slightly on the spectrum when it comes to that because it gets to the stage where some of your mates, you could be telling them something really serious, like someone's died, and they're going like, "Come on, what?" And they go, "It's not a joke." See it? And they go, "Come on." Well, so that's how it gets to that stage where they think everything's, you joke about everything. So you have to be careful. I mean, it can annoy other people, you know, this constantly joking. I have to be mindful of that. See, but again, you see, it didn't matter on Phoenix Nights because that's what we all did. Whereas when you think about people who have been filming all week and they're tired, and you come bouncing in for the day, you know, and you know, it can be annoying. So I have to watch that really. Yeah.
So just to finish off, you
Yeah.
mentioned you're filming in January. What else have you
Yeah.
got planned for the future?
Well, I've been writing some of it. I don't want to talk too much about what it is, but I've kind of written 6 episodes of it, and I'm just left it for a while I reread it and redraft it. You know, kind of developing the characters now. I've got some funny, lot of funny things, and I've been in enough things to know what is funny, if you know what I mean. You know, and I think this would be funny. So what I'll do is I'll refine it, and then I'm going to have some meetings and try and get it flow. You know, get it. I've got a little part in it for me, obviously, but I won't be the main one in it, you know. But I'm quite happy about it. I've reread it once and it made me laugh. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. But can't really say too much about it because they'll nick it. You know what I mean? So
Have you always wanted to get into the writing side of things?
well, yeah, no, I don't know, but I think again going back to this thing about what you know, this is based on something I used to do. You know, it's not me teaching, something I used to do in show business. You know, and so I know, and the thing is, I'm going to have to change the names of some of the characters because they're the real names. You know, from different places. They're not all in the same place. They're all from different places. But they would be able to identify themselves quite easily if we get the original names. But it's not. I'm not. It's not taking the mick out of them. It's more like for me. It's I don't know whether it's a nice kind of view of them. You know, they're all hardworking, good lads. You know, and so yeah. But so it's that, and but when I'm writing it, I can see them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I know that. So yeah, I think it helps you with consistency of a character. You can't have a character that says one thing and then 3 episodes later it does something completely different. You go, well, that. And from what I can gather with Coronation Street, something would happen in Coronation Street in, let's say, 1980 odd, and someone would say, well, in 1964, she said she didn't like cats. So, well, you know, and that's what they do. So you think, so you use that as you think, well, you know, keep them consistent, you know, as long as the characters are consistent. So, but it's good. It's a good exercise because it's a real discipline writing. You know, someone like me who's, you know, always wants to doing the other things um, to sit down and write, you know. And but I'm doing it, so I'm hopeful to get that on somewhere at some point in the future.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. What about stand up and stuff? You got any shows coming up?
Still, yeah, still doing it all over. Where are you based?
Leeds?
Oh, you're in Leeds. I think I'm in Leeds next week.
Oh, really?
Somewhere in Leeds next week, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Um, I'm sure I am, yeah. Definitely. No, I'll tell you when it is. It's on the 28th or something of of November, something like that. And it's because I know it's when City play Tottenham
All
because
right.
we've got an 5:30 kickoff. I'm not going to be able to go because I'm doing this thing in Leeds. So I've given my ticket to someone else. So yeah, I think it's the 20. Whenever City are playing Leeds, I'm on somewhere in Leeds. Can't think what it is. Yeah, can't think off the top of my head, but it's definitely Leeds.
If you
Yeah.
got a season ticket at City then?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've had one when we were in the doldrums. What happened was in the early 70s, like say 74, 75, I had the kind of junior kind of season ticket, you know what I mean? And then what happened is when I started playing in Saturday leagues, in like open age Saturday leagues, I couldn't go. So I didn't go for a while. But if there was a midweek game, I'd go to that. And then when I stopped playing on Saturday, um, we were just getting relegated from the first division into the old second division. So it was effectively third tier. So I got my season ticket again, and then I was there when we beat Gillingham in the final, the playoffs and all that. And it's just been a roller coaster since. I mean, everybody used to be mocking us, because we couldn't afford. I always remember there was a Middlesbrough player called Craig Hignett, and we were interested in signing him, but they wanted 500,000 for him, and we couldn't afford it. And you think now the United fans had always take the mick about us. And now it's come from taking the mick to jealousy, complete jealousy. So it's great now. I mean, I love the football we play now is fantastic. But people think it's been like that. The younger ones, they think that's it. It's not always been like that. And you've got to enjoy it now because when you're older, you realise like when Pep, because I'm not frightened of life after death. I'm just frightened of life after Pep. When Pep goes, it could like any regime, like with the Ferguson era, they've never recovered, have they? So anything can happen. So I'm loving it at the moment. I'm just going to enjoy it while it lasts.
Gonna say it doesn't always last long, does it? So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, good, yeah. So thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, welcome. It was nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you. And yeah, if you're in Leeds at the show, whatever, say hello and I'll come
Yeah,
see
thank
you.
you.
All right, not a problem.
All right, nice one. Yeah,
All
thanks.
right, not a problem. See you now.